the Madman! Welcome to the latest cards revealed from BOOMSDAY, featuring some of the best cards of the set, and some of the worst cards of the set that we've seen so far. Let's start with Replicating Menace. This magnetic Mech is a 4-mana 3/1, Death Rattle, summon 3/1/1 microbots. It has been stated that magnetic minions tend to have a higher health value than attack value, because it can be dangerous to have a high attack value on these mechs. Makes for really big aggression, and certainly it seems like this card is made for an aggressive mech deck. But still the question is 4 mana for +3 attack just a bit too slow for an aggro deck? And the answer is probably. Like most of the magnetic cards, they're not very good minions on their own right. This one does summon 3/1/1 microbots, so if you're playing a big mech theme with magnetic, then you'll probably have more targets for your magnetic stuff, but it seems just a tad too slow. One of the interesting ways to think about it is to compare it with Implosion. But the problem with comparing that with Implosion is you actually need to have a mech that's ready to attack on the board, which is much harder than the general idea of just Implosion and do it even if you have no board. So ultimately, I would expect that this card will just be discovered a decent amount of times. Next up, another card that's just going to be seen through discovers, I think. 6 mana 2/5 Mech for Warrior, Security Rover. Whenever this minion takes damage, summon a 2/3 mech with taunt. And here we can actually see the horror of magnets and mech. The danger of magnetized is that it can snowball. You can build a really big mech, but the other side of it is the balancing team might go too far in making the cards not good enough to be played, because through the playtesting it was revealed to be too strong. And I feel like Security Rover is one of these victims. How is this even close to being possibly playable? Because you compare it with an old card that didn't see any play, Hogger, Doom of Elwyn. For 1 more mana, you got +4 attack and +1 health. No mech tag, and no mech tag on the summon, and 1 less health on the summon. But still, given that Hogger, Elwyn saw no play whatsoever, it can be pretty easily surmised that Security Rover also will not see play. This card is insane with Dr. Boom. What? What? Oh no! 2/5 with Rush! Ah! My god! It's too OP! Next up, we've got the big meme card, Mechathune! 10 mana 10/10, Death Rattle. If you have no cards in your deck, hand in battlefield, destroy the enemy hero. This is the second You Win the Game card to ever be printed in Hearthstone. The first one is Uther, the Death Knight. So you might wonder, how can you possibly get this to work? And boy, do you have to work for it. Some initial ideas are play a druid that draws a bunch of cards, and then play Mechathune. You can even use Hemet to speed up the process. But then one might wonder, why aren't you playing a better deck like Melon? And the answer is probably because you just want to have fun, because Mechathune is meant for the player who really wants to win in a super flashy way and have fun. Other ways to potentially activate Mechathune include use Myras to draw out your deck. You could get rid of your hand and play Mechathune, and hopefully they don't have a silence, a sheep, or a hex. It's hard to imagine Mechathune outracing other combo decks in the format, because the setup you need in order to make Mechathune work, that's real setup. Next up, we've got the rogue spell Necrium Vial. For 5 mana, you trigger a friendly minion's Death Rattle twice. So the question is, what do you want to Necrium Vial? You could be getting value out of your Devilsaur Egg. 5 mana, get 2 5/5s. That's not bad. But perhaps where the most value is by Necrium Vialing a cube. The main problem with cube is cube costs 5 mana, and it's really hard to play a good minion with the cube, and then also have the mana for the vial, even if you have preparation, because preparation vial cube, you only have 3 mana left over. So what good minion could you play for 3 mana? Well, funny you should ask that, because there is one such card you could play that might be really good with that. The answer is a Shadow Stepped Leroy. Then you can play Leroy, you can play your cube, you can play your vial, and then you have 4 more Leroys on top of the first Leroy that attacked. For even more insanity, throw in the Necrium Blade and get 1 more Leroy. You can't go up to 7 Leroys because one of the cards on your board is going to be a Carnivorous Cube. Similar to the Necrium Blade idea, you can also try for the Cobalt Illusionist into Necrium Vial. maybe into Necrium Blade as well. And then if you backstab your Illusionist, you have 4 copies of Malygos on the board. And then with plus 20 spell damage, you should probably be able to find some way to win the game. Now the question is that going to be competitive against the Malygos from Druid, the Malygos from Shaman, and Shudderwock? And we'll have to wait and see. And now, along with Juicy Psych Melon, and in fact a card that works very well with Juicy Psych Melon, is a card that's caused great uproar in the Hearthstone community. It's the dreaded 7 mana 4/4 from Druid, Dreampetal Florist. Don't let her innocent looks fool you, because boy is that watering can packing a punch. At the end of your turn, reduce the cost of a random minion in your hand by 7. Or if this were honest Hearthstone cards, at the end of your turn, reduce the cost of Malygos in your hand by 7. And then you maybe throw in a Faceless Manipulator, maybe you throw in a Floop, you throw in a Moonfire, you throw in a Moonfire, throw in a Swipe, and bam, you've got your 36 damage.
Now that's a lot of damage!
What's even better, you can just find the Florist with your 4 mana draw 4 card. My god, it's a sprint that tutors for 4 mana. And you know what it tutors? It tutors your Florist and your Malygos. Now before you proclaim that this is end of Hearthstone as we know it and the beginning of DRUIDSTONE, if you were to cut Oaken Summons for Floop, because Floop is a card you don't want to grab with Oaken Summons, the deck will perform less well against aggro decks. Right now, the big decks that are winning against Malygos Druid are Zulok, and they are Hunters. And Hunters aren't that popular, but hopefully if they get some amount of tools in this expansion, they will be able to bully out the Malygos Druid. And you'll actually have decks that cheat out really big things fast, such as Recruit Hunters and Taunt Druid. Because one weakness of the Malygos deck is it has very little removal. So don't panic! It's not DRUIDSTONE yet. Speaking of Zoo though, boy are they getting one of the most powerful cards in this set. 1 mana Warlock Legendary spell. Draw 3 cards. At the end of your turn, discard them. 1 mana, draw 3. The Solarium. You know how much mana draw 3 is worth? Well, Druid has that card and they play it. So obviously you're gonna run this card in Zoo, and Zoo is already not entirely sure whether or not runs the Death Knight. Current iteration does not. You run the Solarium, you potentially draw your 3 cards near the end of your game, and then you play the 3 cards, and that's a lot of fuel. It's a lot like Divine Favor in that respect. You will usually end up not discarding any, maybe you'll end up discarding 1, and then it's like 1 mana draw 2, which is also insane. This card naturally doesn't work as well in control decks because control decks cards cost more mana and are more reactive. So this is probably the card meant for a tempo deck such as Zoo. There's some ideas of Quest Warlock, and yes, this is probably a good card for Quest Warlock, kind of, because at least it's 1 mana, discard 3. But Quest Warlock is really bad compared to the power level of some of the cards we're seeing here. So, for my sake, I highly recommend that you do not try Quest Warlock. Next up, we've got Arcane Dynamo. 6 mana, 3/4 battlecry, discover a spell that costs 5 or more. This compares with a few cards out there that are 4 mana, 3/4s, which basically draw you a card of some sort or tutor you up some sort of card. You know, comparing to a 4 mana, 3/4 that gains you a card, a 6 mana, 3/4 that gains you a card, that does not look great. I'm not entirely sure that if this costs 5 mana, I would even consider it playable. So at 6, I don't think there's any chance. The reason why it costs this much is because spells that cost 5 or more are not that common, so you can usually pick and choose the one you want. As a control deck, sometimes you want to have a tutor effect that's able to find the specific card you need, and discovering from a very limited subset, sometimes you can get the single target removal, sometimes you get the hard AoE, sometimes you get the cool utility effect. That would be the idea of Arcane Dynamo, but I think it'll cost too much to actually see play in that role. And finally, Omega Mind. It's Shaman's Omega card, 2 mana, 2/3. Battlecry, if you have 10 mana crystals, your spells have lifesteal this turn. It's like a Hallowzeel, which normally costs 5 mana, but only costs 2 if you're at 10. Simple combo is in fact just Omega Mind Volcano, and this is basically 2 mana, gain 15 health then. That seems good at 10 mana. Maybe you'd even just play this into Shudderwock. I did watch Crip's reveal video of Omega Mind with Electra and Volcano, and worth noting that the second cast of Volcano does not trigger Omega Mind to have lifesteal. That's because Electra cast the second spell and not you. But still obviously really good to get your Electra Omega Mind Volcano turn on turn 10. So those are some pretty intense cards. Some of the strongest ones I've seen. And it looks like this set is gearing up to be an extremely powerful one. I feel very differently on seeing these cards. They all are like very striking, unlike some of the Witchwood, which is like, would I ever play this kind of mediocre minion? Maybe, meh. These though are causing some real stirs, and I think this set will be very impactful for the meta.
The good and the bad times, we've been through them all. Never gonna give you up. Never gonna let you down, never gonna run around. The Inspira, Wheezing Seal, Gyarados Slowbro. Gotta catch 'em all, gotta catch 'em all.